Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a super brief but honestly paradigm-shifting concept from our source material on building mental fortitude. We're talking about short-term optimism for lasting resilience. Right off the bat, you've got to admit this is a fascinating dynamic. I mean, we're smashing together two things that usually sit on total opposite ends of the spectrum, right? The fleeting right now and the massive, enduring long-term future. So let's dive in and see exactly how the source connects the two.
Okay, looking at this comparison, what hits you instantly is the massive cognitive gap here. On one hand, we've got an action that's completely temporary, and on the other, a result that is permanent. Think about short-term optimism. By definition, that's a restricted, tiny time frame. We're talking about keeping a positive outlook just to get through today, maybe even just the next hour. Now compare that to lasting resilience. That implies a rock-solid, permanent state of mental strength, the deeply ingrained ability to bounce back over an entire lifetime. So how on earth do we get from isolated temporary bursts of positivity to permanent structural strength? It feels like a huge leap, doesn't it?
Which brings us to Section 1, the resilience paradox.
This central mystery really sets the stage for everything we're looking at today. It challenges literally everything we usually assume about planning for our futures. It makes you wonder, how exactly does a short time frame create something lasting? Think about how completely counterintuitive that is. Society always tells us that to build lasting results, we need long-term planning, right? 5-year plans, distant horizons, all that massive foresight. But our source material completely flips that conventional wisdom on its head. It throws out this radical alternative, that looking too far ahead might actually be the enemy of building true enduring mental strength.
Let's move on to Section 2, practicing positive thinking.
The deliberate use of the word practice here is just brilliant. The text doesn't tell us to just be positive or have positive thoughts. No, it explicitly commands us to practice positive thinking. That single word changes the whole game. It means we have to treat optimism like going to the gym. You don't just wake up with a bicep out of nowhere, you've got to put in the reps. The exact same goes for optimism. It isn't this passive genetic trait you're either born with or you aren't. It's an active, ongoing, everyday effort. You have to treat it as a hard-earned skill and literally schedule time to rehearse it, especially when things get tough. The source is explicitly telling us, optimism is a workout, so step up and lift the weight.
Moving right along to Section 3, the short-term shift.
So this gives us a crystal clear two-step methodology. Step 1 is the action we just talked about, practice positive thinking. Step 2 introduces the vital boundary. Think short term. Look, if you try to practice positive thinking for the rest of your entire life all at once, if you try to be optimistic about every single thing that will ever happen to you, boom, it instantly becomes overwhelming. It's just way too heavy of a mental load. But when you lock in Step 2 alongside Step 1, you give your mind this highly specific, restricted, and totally safe arena to operate in.
By intentionally shrinking our focus down to the immediate short term, we carve out a manageable space to actually execute that practice. When you apply this, you aren't sitting there trying to figure out if robots are going to take your job in a decade, or stressing over the state of the economy in 5 years. You're simply asking yourself, hey, can I find a positive angle on just clearing out my inbox for the next hour? Or can I maintain a constructive mindset for just this one single meeting? By making the time frame incredibly small, this huge, daunting task of positive thinking transforms. It goes from an exhausting lifelong burden to a totally achievable daily micro-habit.
Okay, so having broken down both the action of practicing and the restriction of the time frame, we're brought right back to our central hook. How does the short term build the lasting? We've totally established that short-term thinking makes practicing optimism way easier and more manageable. But ease doesn't automatically equal endurance, right? Doing something easy for a day doesn't magically make you strong forever. So let's look at the final piece of the logic the source provides to see exactly how these small, manageable moments fundamentally alter us.
And that brings us to Section 4, a resilient outlook.
The logic here is just undeniable. Developing a deeply resilient outlook is the direct, compounding result of keeping your optimistic practice confined to the short term. The source reveals this incredible truth. Lasting resilience isn't some massive wall you build all at once. It's built brick by brick. You practice positive thinking for one short-term interval. Then, you wake up and you do it again for the next interval. Over time, all these little micro-victories stack up. And because you aren't completely burned out from trying to predict and control a distant, unknowable future, you actually have the emotional energy reserve to successfully navigate the present moment. And guess what? A long, unbroken string of successfully navigated presents is exactly what a lasting, resilient outlook is made of. Permanent strength isn't found at the end of a long, anxious road of planning. It's forged in the tiny, optimistic steps you take right where you're currently standing.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final question to really chew on. It challenges you to rethink how tackling today secures tomorrow. If lasting resilience is built by practicing short-term optimism, how will narrowing your focus today alter your strength for tomorrow? The source material gives us a blueprint that is honestly so freeing. You do not have to carry the massive weight of the future on your shoulders today. You just have to commit to practicing optimism right now in the immediate short term. Shrink your timeline, put in the reps, and watch how those brief, focused moments of practice slowly but surely forge an absolutely unbreakable, lasting resilience. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to put this powerful framework to the test in your own life today.